to point out a couple things as far as kind of Berhalter's initial what seems like mishandling of this, that press conference after Wales where he says both the tactical explanation why he went with Jordan Morris, right, and then also the story of Gio Reyna's tightness, right? So, one, I think we see in the Athletic article that the performance specifically in the scrimmage against Al Gharafa was so kind of overwhelmingly out of character that it forced the coaching staff to question whether the player was guarding against an injury.
Right.
Beyond that, there's a quote published from the mix zone after the Wales game from Henry Bushnell, who writes for Yahoo Sports, where Reyna himself
Good writer.
Uses the word tightness. So this idea that Berhalter lied, those are Reyna's words, tightness. Those are Reyna's words. So he may have been trying to cover.
Well, Berhalter did lie, but I think it was an attempt to protect the player.
Well, not if Reyna's saying it was tightness.
But then he said it was tactical.
Could it be both?
No, it's one or the other. I mean,
well, if the player has tightness,
the player's not fit, then it's not tactical. It's physical. Do you understand?
I guess so. I think then we're leaving out that
it's availability.
Berhalter may have valued Morris more in that role, right?
Which is fine. You could say that if you want. You're the coach. Then we will question you tactically. But there is an inconsistency with Gregg Berhalter. Now, I understand why. I feel he's trying to protect the player.
Right, right.
Giovanni's 20 years old, and he's already made these mistakes in-house to his teammates. The last thing you want to do is put him on blast for the world to see in the biggest sporting event of this collective's life.
Right. Okay, so let's get to kind of the brass tacks here, right? Gio Reyna's upset because he finds out he's not going to have a big role. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20. Obviously, we're looking back at this tournament now and the performances of everybody else. Would you have started him against Wales?
If he showed you that attitude?
Well, he didn't show you that. So the attitude comes after he's told he's not going to play a big role,
when
right?
When was that? It was because in this scrimmage, the attitude was so bad, it questioned, because this is what we're hearing. In this scrimmage, before the World Cup, the attitude was so bad.
Why is the attitude bad? Because he was told he was not going to have a significant role.
Correct.
So we have to say that before he...
So he gets a pass from the group for that?
No, I'm just saying let's get to the point where he's in training camp, things are going normally, right?
Right.
It's not, we have not seen the bad days.
Okay.
Okay?
Because we don't know the exact timeline.
Right. At that point, should Gio Reyna have been a starter for this team?
Who does he start for?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, in hindsight, the only player that you could take off, or even the place that makes sense, is Tim Weah,
who was your best player against Wales, one of your best players in the tournament. And I know it's hindsight.
You're not taking him in for, you're not putting him in for Pulisic.
I had a huge role. This is starting lineup versus Wales.
Right.
Pulisic, Sargent, Weah. First half, great. Second half, there's a case to be made that a player like Gio would have provided a lot if healthy. But I cannot fault a coach for not playing a player, not giving time to a player who betrayed the trust of his teammates. And this is where we're at. And we don't know the exact timeline, so it's very difficult. But if you're trying to tell me that Gio Reyna acted this way and his teammates called him out for it, and then he's going to be rewarded with a start,
right?
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, for me, the timeline is a little bit more clear in that there must have been, he comes into camp, performs however he performs, and at some point is told, hey, you're not going to have a huge role here. Then that performance drops off. That's how I read the article. Right. So to me, if we go off, I know you say high ceiling all the time with Gio Reyna, and I don't doubt you. I'll you're the footballing expert here. So
remember that.
Steady. So, but if anybody, if we're going off like form coming in, because of course Gio's last year has just been ruined by injuries, right?
Yeah.
But if there's anybody who had a case to mope, feel bad about not being in that Wales 11 that we saw, to me it was never Gio Reyna, it was Brendan Aronson.
Right.
That was always the
Playing
case for me.
Week in, week out.
Now, if I look at the strengths of this team and I consider that Aronson could have been a great fit for you at one of those other way up Pulisic, that argument, I actually think where Reyna could have really had a huge role in this tournament, especially thinking about what Gregg Berhalter said pre-tournament, I'm going to use a lot of my subs, and then seeing what he didn't. He didn't. And especially, where did he not use the subs almost at all is that midfield three. And clearly by the fourth game, that group has run out of gas. Was there a start? Was there a full 45 minutes instead of the 7 that he got against England to give Gio, maybe it was Wales, maybe it was England, maybe it was somewhere else, that could have left Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie. I don't think he's a Tyler Adams sub, but one of those two guys fresher for the game against Netherlands. That to me is the real loss here.
Now the timeline here is where we're not clear, correct? Because we don't know at what point the apology was deemed or was given and it was deemed enough.
Well, it sounds like after the Wales game, things were, after that, there were no more problems after the apology.
After the Wales game, there are no more problems. Gio Reyna has to play a lot more. If he's forgiven by his teammates, by the coaching staff, and it's all put aside like we've heard it was put aside, he has to get more playing time because of that ceiling, because of the fresh legs, because you know the talent level is there to help you win. Now, not winning against Poland, or excuse me, not winning against Wales puts you behind the 8 ball. You win against Wales, you're afforded more leeway for substitutions, to revamp or to rotate, to do certain things. You take certain liberties that you normally wouldn't take if you're behind the 8 ball. They tied, very unfortunately. And that put him behind that 8 ball, and that's when the hand in Berhalter's mind is forced.
Right. I also think the Wales game, no matter what, is closest to the Algarafa scrimmage, which seems to be the inflection point, right? So I could see the manager having trouble trusting the player in that Wales game, even if this had been cleared up pre-Wales, having just seen that effort. Even if you think it's cleared up, you might say, I need more time before I can trust this player and put him back out there. And maybe it wasn't just the manager that felt that. You're talking about the other players who felt that. And the manager clearly can't put a guy that the other, if he doesn't trust him and the other guys don't trust him.
We've been hearing about scuffles that happen on the field and players calling each other out. These things happen all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? What doesn't happen all the time is a team or a coach ready to send, a player home from a major tournament.
That to me speaks to the severity of the behavior.
That's what it is. Now, if
that's more on Gio than anybody else.
And clearly Gio accepts that.
Right, he owns it.
Gio is 20 years old, and in his statement, and listen, they have agents, you have a camp, you have a marketing team. It was very well put out. His acceptance in his role for not playing, for letting his teammates down. Gio Reyna, post that disciplinary issue, in everything we've heard, has been fine.
Yeah.
In his response to a betrayal, has been fine.